a cricket club that has produced Test cricketers Dwayne Smith and Fidel Edwards. In this edition of the BCA Club School of the Month, we visit the YMPC Club. There's so much to learn. We are excited. This is we. I'm here at the YMPC Cricket Club in St. Michael with Secretary of the club, Renato Seeley. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Ren, you've been at this club for a number of years. You started obviously as an active player, and then you've been part of the administration for just about 5 or so years. How has that transition been from being an active member playing into being part of the administration of this club?
Well, Stephen, that's a very good question. The transition was one that was very sudden, almost a shocking transition. Most cricketers that love the game, you think you play forever. And being here this is now actually 18 years since 2005, you never think your playing days will come to an end, or at least close to an end. So being an active player, that was foremost in my mind, really and truly. But then, we had a mass exodus of a lot of senior players. You know how life goes, some with families, some with more professional opportunities, etc. And it pretty much thrust all of us that came in together around the same time, thrust us as young men in our late 20s going into our 30s to take on the responsibility of continuing the club. And that is where then most of us started to assimilate into the management of the club. My role as secretary would have only been about 2 years now, but then I would have been a floor member for about 5 or 6 years.
It was a tremendous achievement that you had on Test debut. Tell me a little bit about that fateful day in South Africa.
Only 2 days ago I was talking about that with one of my friends. It was just one of those days that I went out there and decided I have to back myself. First innings was a little iffy because, the first time you go and play against world-class bowlers like Sean Pollock, Antini, Andre Nell, Jack Callis, when he was in his prime there then. But for me, it was just for the second innings to get out there and express myself, be Dwayne Smith.
Wonderful. Calvin, you've been at this club now for just over 2 decades. You are one of the youngest serving presidents. Club life and being an administrator within club, how has your experience been in general being at YMPC over the last few years?
My experience has been pretty good. It obviously was a trying time when I first took over as president, because when I first took over as president, it was probably in my late 20s, but it was a situation where it was like thrusted on you because a lot of the senior guys at that point in time left, and it was you were the next man up basically. So I had to take the mantle and run with it. In terms of playing cricket, I did enjoy my time playing cricket here as well. I don't play anymore. Wish I still was. At some point in time, I will return. But I had wonderful playing days here, playing with Dwayne, playing with Fidel, playing with Matthew King, Ryan Wiggins, those boys. So we came through from 2002 or so, and I stopped playing probably around 6 years or so ago. But in terms of the administration was trying, as I said at first. It has gotten better. Obviously, with life experiences, it also helps with your administration in the club. And you learn, and you try to put those things that you learn into execution.
Well, I know that it's just been a short while, as you said, but your expertise, social media being very critical to highlighting the club. How has that experience been where you drive the social media for this club?
Well, once again, Stephen, very good question. The social media aspect for the marketing and the branding of the club, these are different times that we're in. So we found that, one, to attract new membership, two, keep the club fresh in the minds of the community and those at large, we needed to obviously look at a lot of those social media elements and see how best we could integrate them into the traditional way in which cricket is normally brought across to the wider public. My skill set as a brand designer and someone that deals with marketing and advertising a lot, I then took that responsibility to make sure, at least in terms of any type of digital media that went out or advertising, etc. I made sure that it was clean, it was cohesive, and it kept to the ethos that the new management wanted for the club. Because what we decided as a management and as young management, I would like to say, is that we wanted to really enforce the name of YMPC, which is Young Men's Progressive Club. So we wanted to make sure that we started to do things a bit differently than what was done in the past. We wanted to make sure that we embraced a lot of these same new technologies like the social media, etc., so that persons in the wider public would still know that, YMPC exists. There's still a lot of passion and a lot of drive at YMPC, and to also encourage some of the more skilled youngsters or seasoned practitioners that may be looking for a new home, that YMPC would be a good option.
During that innings, I know persons like to see the boundaries that you struck out. Were there any chirping that was going on? You being a young man, your first test match, from those experienced players that you just mentioned?
Of course, there were plenty of it. I think in the same second innings, when I got the 100, I was about 20 or something like that, and Herschel Gibbs walked from slip or the gully area and walk up and said, "Oh, I've seen brave men in graves." I say, "Yeah, I've seen brave men score plenty too." And then it was Boucher who was talking behind the stumps. He was saying something. I know he said something that, for me, I thought it was a little out of line. So I just turned to him, hide my mouth with my gloves, and tell him, "Listen, any ball that's short here from Paul, which is Paul Adams,
Yes.
I'm going to pull you and the ball in the boundary." From there, he was just backing back from the time that he saw me. But for me, it was just to get out there, and I like it. So, I mean, we play cricket in Barbados. You get it every weekend when you play club cricket. So it wasn't nothing for me. That was easier for me than anything. The only problem was that they were better bowlers, and you had to work harder at the shot selection that you had been making.
And it's not because Dwayne is here, but all clubs in Barbados need financial and moral assistance. You know it's not a one-man show, you're spreading it around.
Right.
But what have you found in terms of the assistance that someone like Dwayne and others might have provided over the time that would have assisted you in your tenure as president?
Yeah, you're correct. Running a club is not cheap. Running a club, it calls for finances, and sometimes you got to juggle those finances. Dwayne obviously would have pumped some money into the club previously. And then from his stint in the IPL, we did receive some release funds from the IPL also for Dwayne. So that helped the club tremendously. Actually, that probably kept the doors of YMPC open, because there were times where persons weren't really sponsoring clubs. It's still difficult trying to get sponsorship. Right now we have a sponsorship with Bayview Hospital, but I know a lot of clubs right now are struggling to obtain sponsorship. So of course, financially it can be difficult, and doing support, doing playing cricket in those leagues also helped. Fidel at a point in time also, we did receive a bit for Fidel as well. Not much, but everything helps.
And finally, Bayview Hospital, title sponsor for the club. How has that relationship been over the years?
That has been a very interesting and gratifying partnership, because initially we were hunting for a sponsorship, I want to say, Stephen, probably about 5-6 years prior to them coming on board, and it was to our surprise, they actually approached us. Clearly it was with their future project in mind, which is obviously redeveloping their physical plant. So they decided to come on board and be a title sponsor, and we were like, no better way right now, because we were really struggling to get sponsors. And once they came on board, we were able to do bits and pieces that we were never able to do before. It's helped the club transform tremendously. We still have a lot of work to do. So obviously we still have to go back to the negotiating table with them to know that they're full steam ahead in their project, how else we can also improve as a club to make sure that the two parties have a very, very symbiotic relationship.
And finally, Dwayne, you've been involved in cricket extensively. You're here at YMPC. I know there's a connection, almost a natural flow between persons who attended the Garrison Secondary, now known as Great Necessarily, into the club. But what I really want to know, have you always in your heart felt that you wanted to be an entertainer? Because you've done that all over the world, to entertain the fans, entertain your club mates, entertain your people. Have you always had that at the forefront of your playing career?
Yes, of course. From class 1, I remember our teacher at that time asking us to write a composition on what we want to be going forward in life. And I can remember this composition like yesterday. I mean, I write that I am going to be selected for West Indies in 2003, and I'm going to play the 2003 World Cup. Because at the time we used to play the odd numbers, and I used to count every 4 years. I give myself till about 19, and I mean, I made the team in 2003, but obviously I debuted in 2004 after the World Cup. But I mean, it's something like, those are things that when I look back, it makes me proud, because I worked towards something. I mean, I didn't get what I wanted, but I still got the year, which was correct. And going forward from there, it was just for me to go out there and express myself, and that's what it was. And I always used to watch tapes of Vivian Richards because my dad loved that man to bits. So it was only for me to come out and try and be like him. I mean, in my own way, but to be dominant like him in cricket.
Wonderful. Calvin, great in senior secondary, the connection forming as Garrison. Has there been that continual flow of players into the club who wish to continue this legacy, Garrison and YMPC?
Yeah, of course. And they practice here. They play some of their school games here. Under 19, under 15, under 13, I believe as well. They play here. So we have that connection with them sometimes even before they get to be men. So the fact that we have them around from even before they leave school, yes, that connection is there. Dwayne would be, obviously in my time, would be one that come out to Greater City. You have Shamar Cook, Jafari Topping started here, young Dwayne Smith. So they have a number of them. Even is Gaston Brown, Boeing, right? That just played in the final for us, and he's still at school actually. So the school gave us permission to allow us to let him play, and he did very well behind the stumps in that game as well. So of course we would like to continue that relationship. It is a situation, in England and those places, they have something called feeder clubs. So Garrison is like our feeder club. Once they want to play here, and I don't want to say once they're good enough, because we invite anybody here to play for YMPC. They're invited anytime.
Well, Calvin, I want to say to you that being a young administrator for a club that is over 80 years old is not an easy task. I want to commend you on the wonderful work that you've done. And Dwayne, definitely the entertainer that you've been, I want you to keep those legs going, keep fit, and be able to continue to build the legacy for this club and for yourself.
I definitely will. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen.